The Galactic Council pushed too far culminates in Operation Shadowfall, humanity's masterstroke. Earth's hidden fleet emerges while devastating cyber attacks cripple council systems across space. For the first time in galactic history, a probationary species forces the mighty council to negotiate as equals. With unexpected allies rallying to their cause, humans transform from supplicants to revolutionaries, fundamentally reshaping the power structure of the cosmos. The central station of the Galactic Council orbited a neutron star, its brilliant blue-white light filtering through transparent alumina windows that lined the diplomatic quarter. John Miller stood with his palm pressed against the cool surface, watching the hypnotic dance of stellar matter being drawn into tight spirals around the cosmic object. 30 years of diplomacy had led to this moment. Earth had finally joined the interstellar community as a probationary member. Quite the view, isn't it? Lisa Carter joined him at the window, her uniform bearing the insignia of the first chairperson of the United Earth Alliance. Sometimes I still can't believe we made it this far. John nodded, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. It's been a long road, 3 decades of proving ourselves worthy of consideration. And we've only just begun, Lisa said, straightening her posture. We're not here merely to learn, John. We're here to contribute. Around them, the diplomatic team was making final preparations. Ambassadors from 17 founding species and 23 probationary races moved through the Grand Hall, their diverse physiologies a testament to the vastness of intelligent life in the galaxy. The central meeting chamber awaited, its massive doors emblazoned with symbols representing unity and cooperation, concepts that humanity was eager to embrace, yet wary of their implementation. They're ready for us, John said, noticing the subtle change in lighting that signaled the meeting's commencement. Remember what we discussed. We acknowledge their guidance, but we must establish our position as equals in potential, if not yet in status. Lisa nodded, her eyes reflecting determination. Humanity has overcome too much to simply become another subordinate species. We will learn, but we will also teach. Together, they walked toward the chamber, John's diplomatic experience and Lisa's political acumen forming a partnership that would soon be tested beyond anything they had anticipated. The central chamber of the Galactic Council was a marvel of engineering and aesthetics. A massive amphitheater descended in concentric rings toward a central platform where speakers would address the assembly. The ceiling was a perfect replica of the galaxy, stars illuminating in real time to represent active communications across civilized space. Zelther, the council chairperson, stood at the central podium. His iridescent scales shifted colors as he moved, a natural feature of his species that had evolved as a communication mechanism, but now served as an unconscious indicator of his emotional state. The blue-green hue suggesting calm authority. Representatives of Earth. His voice resonated through the chamber's perfect acoustics. We welcome you as probationary members of the galactic community. This day marks the beginning of a new era for your species, one of growth, learning, and integration. Lisa and John took their positions at the designated platform for Earth's delegation, conscious of the hundreds of eyes and equivalent sensory organs focused on them. Thank you, Chairperson Zelther, Lisa began, her voice steady. Humanity is honored to join this grand assembly of civilizations. We come eager to learn, but also ready to share our unique perspectives and contributions. Zelther's scales rippled with a momentary flash of amber, surprise, perhaps discomfort, before returning to their calm blue. Of course, all species bring their unique attributes to our community. However, as is customary, there are certain conditions that must be agreed upon for probationary membership to progress toward full status. John felt a familiar tension in his shoulders. This was the moment they had prepared for, the negotiation that would set the tone for humanity's place in the galactic order. We are prepared to discuss these conditions, John responded, and to understand the benefits that accompany them. Zelther nodded, gesturing to a holographic display that appeared above the central platform. The terms are standard for all emerging spacefaring civilizations. First, environmental restoration protocols for your homeworld and colonies. Second, limitations on military expansion to ensure peace. Third, oversight of genetic research to prevent destabilizing evolutionary developments. Lisa stepped forward. And what does Earth receive in return for these concessions? A murmur rippled through the assembly. Direct questions about reciprocity were apparently uncommon. The benefits are substantial, Zelther continued, his scales now pulsing with subtle patterns. Access to life extension technologies, sustainable energy systems that would end your dependency on fossil fuels, protection from threats you cannot yet perceive. John exchanged a glance with Lisa. The offers were tempting, revolutionary advances that would transform human civilization. Yet, something in Zelther's phrasing felt carefully calculated, each benefit presented as a gift rather than an exchange between equals. We appreciate the Council's generosity, Lisa said carefully. But we would like to understand the specifics of these arrangements before proceeding, particularly the nature of military limitations and research oversight. Zelther's scales darkened slightly. Of course, the details will be provided for your review. We understand that your species values, what is your term, due diligence. As they left the chamber, John felt a growing unease. They're offering conditional kindness, he muttered to Lisa as they returned to their quarters. Conditional kindness with underlying control, she agreed. The question is, do we accept their terms and potentially sacrifice long-term freedom for immediate advancement? Or do we risk falling behind by maintaining our independence? Neither option seemed satisfactory, but the decision would shape humanity's future among the stars. Over the following weeks, the Council's requirements expanded beyond their initial presentation. What had begun as principles for environmental stewardship evolved into specific quotas for resource allocation on Earth's lunar and Martian colonies. Military limitations now included monitoring of Earth's defense systems and restrictions on weapons research. The oversight of genetic research extended to monitoring of telecommunications and media to prevent destabilizing information. This isn't partnership, John said during a secure meeting with Earth's leadership team. It's a framework for containment. Dr. Susan Wright, head of xenoanthropology for the diplomatic mission, nodded grimly. I've been analyzing historical records we've been granted access to. There's a pattern here. The Veltraxians and Hadarians went through similar experiences during their probationary periods. Initial cooperation, followed by increasing restrictions. And where are they now? Lisa asked. The Veltraxians remain probationary members after 67 Earth years. The Hadarians were eventually granted full membership, but only after agreeing to place their military under Council command during a conflict with a non-member species. Paul Jackson, Earth's chief negotiator, leaned forward. So the model is, learn, then limit. They allow technological advancement only to the point where it serves their purposes, then implement controls to prevent any challenge to the established order. Lisa's expression hardened. Then we need to prepare for the possibility that this relationship may not develop as advertised. Paul, continue the negotiations, but stall for time. John, I want you working with Dr. Wright to establish communication with other probationary species, discreetly. And what will you be doing? John asked. Implementing Operation Breakwater, Lisa replied. If the Council is going to drip-feed us technology while watching for signs of rebellion, we'll need to accelerate our development while building defensive systems they can't easily monitor. Paul raised an eyebrow. That's a dangerous game, Chairperson. So is surrendering our future to a power that sees us as children to be controlled rather than allies to be respected. Lisa countered. We'll continue diplomatic engagement, but will also prepare for less favorable outcomes. The Europa crisis began 6 months later. The ice moon of Jupiter had become humanity's primary source of rare minerals, essential for advanced computing and propulsion systems. Without warning, Council vessels established a blockade, citing concerns about unauthorized weapons development in the research stations beneath Europa's ice. "There are no weapons on Europa," Lisa insisted during an emergency session with Zelther and the Council's Security Committee. "Our facilities there are purely scientific and extractive. Our intelligence suggests otherwise," Zelther replied, his scales now a deep purple that Earth's xenopsychologist had learned to associate with resolute authority. "We simply require an inspection to verify compliance with probationary terms." "We've already offered to allow a joint inspection team," John interjected. "Your refusal to accept our participation suggests this is about something other than weapons." Zelther's gaze hardened. "The Council's authority in security matters is absolute. Ambassador Miller, resistance to our protocols only reinforces concerns about Earth's readiness for membership." Lisa felt the diplomatic ground shifting beneath them. What had begun as a partnership was rapidly transforming into a relationship of dominance and submission. Earth's independence, the very quality that had allowed humanity to survive and thrive on their challenging homeworld, was being systematically undermined. The crisis escalated when a warning shot from a Council vessel struck Section 7 of the Europa Research Facility, causing a catastrophic decompression that claimed the lives of 17 scientists. The Council called it a tragic accident, a miscalculation of Europa's thin atmosphere and the facility's structural integrity. Earth called it an act of war. Images of the funeral ceremonies circled the globe. 17 coffins draped in the United Earth flag. Monuments bearing the words, "Remember Europa," erected in major cities. Public sentiment shifted dramatically from enthusiasm about galactic membership to outrage at what was increasingly seen as an oppressive alien authority. Lisa Carter, once the diplomat who had led humanity into the stars, resigned her position. Her replacement, Admiral Gary Williams, restructured the United Earth Alliance into a more militarized organization, focusing on defense and strategic independence. "Operation Defiance is now active," Williams announced to Earth's Security Council. "We've deployed cyber warfare units to analyze Council communications and defense systems. Our stealth ships are positioned throughout the asteroid belt, ready to respond to any further aggression." John Miller, still serving as ambassador, found himself in an increasingly difficult position, maintaining the appearance of diplomatic engagement while secretly facilitating Earth's preparations for potential conflict. "The Council suspects nothing," Paul Jackson asked during a secure communication. "They believe we're simply processing our grief and adjusting to the new reality," John replied. Zelther actually expressed appreciation for Earth's mature response to the Europa incident. "Mature response," Paul echoed with bitter amusement. "If they only knew." Operation Shadowfall was initiated without warning. Earth's cyber warfare specialists, having spent months infiltrating the Council's communications and defense network, launched a coordinated attack that disabled key systems across Council space. Council vessels near Centauri Station suddenly found their navigation and weapon systems malfunctioning. Communication relays between member worlds experienced mysterious failures. In the confusion, Earth's previously hidden fleet emerged from the asteroid belt, positioning itself strategically around key Council installations. "What is the meaning of this?" Zelther demanded when John Miller requested an emergency session. "The meaning is quite clear, Chairperson," John replied calmly. "Humanity will no longer accept the pretense of partnership while being subjected to control and intimidation. We request an immediate conference at Epsilon 9 to renegotiate the terms of Earth's relationship with the Council." "This is unprecedented." Zelther's scales flashed rapidly between colors, betraying his agitation. "You cannot simply force a diplomatic concession through military action." "We learned from the best," John said. The Europa incident demonstrated that the Council is willing to use force to maintain its authority. We're simply ensuring a more balanced conversation. For the first time in the Council's history, a probationary species had not only challenged its authority, but had successfully leveraged a position of strength. The emergency conference at Epsilon 9, a gas giant in neutral space, would be conducted as a bilateral negotiation rather than a dictation of terms. As Earth's delegation prepared for the conference, they received unexpected communications from other species. The Veltraxians, still probationary after decades, offered support. Representatives from the Nor Collective and the Hyerian Remnant indicated their willingness to stand with humanity in challenging the Council's approach to emerging civilizations. "We're not alone in our concerns," Dr. Susan Wright observed as she analyzed the incoming messages. The Council's pattern of control has created a foundation of resentment among multiple species. "Then perhaps it's time for a more fundamental change," Gary Williams suggested. "Not just for Earth, but for the structure of galactic governance itself." The conference chamber on Epsilon 9 was a stark contrast to the Grand Hall of the Council. A simple, hexagonal room with equal positions for all participants. No elevated platforms. No symbolic architecture reinforcing hierarchies of power. Earth's delegation entered to find not only the expected Council representatives, but also delegations from 7 other species, positioned in a show of solidarity with humanity's cause. This was to be a bilateral discussion, Zelther began, his scales a tight pattern of deep blue and violet. "The issues at hand affect more than just Earth and the Council," John replied. "These representatives have requested observer status, which we have granted as co-hosts of this conference." Before Zelther could object, the main display activated, showing detailed evidence of the Council's historical pattern of controlling emerging civilizations, from the Veltraxian experience to the Europa incident. Dr. Susan Wright narrated the presentation, her academic tone lending weight to the damning historical analysis. "For too long, the Council has operated on a principle of managed development," she concluded, "allowing new species to advance only insofar as they remain controllable, never permitting them to achieve true parity with founding members. This system does not protect galactic stability. It preserves power imbalances that benefit a select few." As the presentation ended, Paul Jackson stepped forward to present Earth's demands. "We propose 3 fundamental changes to the structure of galactic governance," he stated. First, equal membership status for all species, with probationary periods limited to 10 standard years. Second, reparations for losses suffered during the Europa incident, and similar events involving other species. Third, the dissolution of the Council's enforcement arm and the establishment of a mutual defense alliance, in which all members participate equally. "These demands are impossible," Zelther objected. "The Council's structure has maintained peace for millennia." "A peace built on subordination is not true peace," Lisa Carter said, making her first public appearance since her resignation. "We've analyzed the Council's dependency on resources and expertise from probationary worlds. You need us more than you've acknowledged. You have 1 standard week to accept these terms." "Or what?" Zelther challenged. "Or Earth and its allies will withdraw from the Council completely," Gary Williams replied, "taking with us the resources, innovations, and unique perspectives that you claim to value so highly." The weight of the ultimatum hung in the air. For all its age and authority, the Council had become dependent on the energy and creativity of younger civilizations. A mass withdrawal would destabilize the carefully balanced system they had maintained for thousands of years. 7 days later, the new charter was signed at Epsilon 9. 17 founding species and 23 former probationary races put their marks on a document that fundamentally restructured galactic governance. The Council remained, but as a coordinating body, rather than a ruling one. Military authority was distributed among all signatories, with a system of checks and balances to prevent any single power from dominating. John Miller watched from the observation deck as the delegations departed, their ships forming a glittering procession against the swirling backdrop of Epsilon 9's atmosphere. "Do you think it will last?" Lisa asked, joining him at the viewport. "Nothing lasts forever," John replied. "But we've created something better than what came before. A system where strength comes from cooperation rather than control." As Earth's ships returned home, they passed the monuments to the Europa scientists, once symbols of tragedy, now reminders of the price of freedom and the danger of unchecked authority. The United Earth Alliance, no longer focused solely on defense, began to implement the technologies they had developed during their period of secret preparation. Colonies expanded throughout the solar system, and Earth's first true interstellar vessels were launched, not as supplicants seeking admission to an established order, but as equal partners in a new galactic community. In diplomatic halls across the galaxy, a new phrase entered the lexicon of interspecies relations: the Earth response, a recognition that pushing too far against a species' fundamental rights would inevitably lead to resistance, innovation, and ultimately change. John Miller eventually retired from diplomatic service, but on the anniversary of the new charter's signing, he still visited the Memorial Garden in Geneva, where a piece of Europa's ice, recovered from the destroyed research station, was preserved in a state of permanent suspension, a small blue crystal that had changed the course of galactic history. "We never wanted conflict," he would tell young diplomats who sought his wisdom. "We simply refused to surrender our essence in exchange for advancement. Sometimes, the greatest strength is knowing when to stand firm." And across the vast expanse of space, humanity continued to explore, to learn, and to grow, unhindered by artificial constraints, unwilling to compromise on fundamental freedoms, and unafraid of the challenges that awaited among the stars. The diplomatic quarter buzzed with activity as preparation for the first anniversary of the new charter approached. John Miller, now an elder statesman after his retirement from active service, watched from a balcony as representatives from 39 worlds coordinated the celebration. It was a far cry from the tense, hierarchical atmosphere that had dominated these halls during Earth's probationary period. "Quite the change, isn't it?" Lisa Carter joined him, her civilian clothes a stark contrast to the formal uniforms she had worn during the crisis. "Hard to believe it's only been a year." John nodded, his eyes following a group of Veltraxian diplomats as they conversed animatedly with representatives from Earth and the Hyerian remnant. "The council chamber used to fall silent when Zelther entered. Now I just watched 3 junior diplomats debate theoretical physics with a founding member, and nobody batted an eye." "That's what genuine exchange looks like," Lisa said. "Not carefully measured droplets of knowledge, but the free flow of ideas." She paused, her expression growing more serious. "There's still resistance, though. The old guard hasn't completely accepted the new reality." "They never will," John replied. "But their influence wanes with each successful collaboration, each joint mission, each problem solved through cooperation rather than decree." Below them, a holographic display activated, showing the progress of the joint expedition to the galactic core, a scientific mission that would have been unthinkable under the old regime, where access to certain regions of space was tightly controlled by the Council. "Captain Summers reports they've reached the radiation boundary," Lisa noted, reading the data stream. "The shielding technology the Nor Collective developed based on our quantum field research is holding perfectly." "And to think the Council would have restricted both technologies as potentially destabilizing," John said with a wry smile. The memory of Europa still cast a shadow over Earth's interactions with the galaxy. The 17 scientists who had perished, Alan Davis, Dr. Maria Lopez, Ben Rogers, and their colleagues, had become symbols of both sacrifice and awakening. Their names were inscribed on the first interstellar vessel launched under the new charter, and their research formed the foundation of Earth's most revolutionary contributions to galactic science. Williams wants to establish a permanent memorial at the Europa site, Lisa said. Not just for our people, but as a galactic monument to the dangers of unchecked authority. How did Zelther respond to that proposal? John asked. With surprising grace. Actually, I think even he recognizes that the old system was unsustainable. He's been working closely with the Transitional Committee, especially on integrating the former enforcement fleet into the new Defense Alliance. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Susan Wright, whose historical analysis had played a crucial role in rallying support from other species during the crisis. I hope I'm not intruding, she said, but there's something you both should see. She activated a small, holographic projector, displaying a star chart with several highlighted systems. We've been analyzing communication patterns in the regions beyond Council space. There are indications of organized intelligence, possibly a coalition of species that have deliberately avoided contact. John studied the display with interest. A parallel development to the Council? Potentially, Susan confirmed. And given their location relative to former Council territory, they may have been observing our civilization for some time. Another test for the new charter, Lisa mused. How we approach this potential contact will demonstrate whether we've truly created something better than what came before. John smiled, feeling a familiar mixture of excitement and trepidation, the emotional signature of humanity's greatest adventures. Then, we'd better make sure we get it right, not just for Earth's sake, but for all the worlds that have joined us in this experiment. As they discussed the implications of this discovery, the station's lighting shifted to a soft gold, the signal for the commencement of the memorial service, honoring those lost during the transition to the new galactic order. Throughout Council space, now officially renamed the Galactic Concordance, ceremonies were beginning simultaneously, a shared moment of reflection across thousands of light years. In the main chamber, where Earth's delegation had once stood as supplicants before the Council, representatives from all member worlds now gathered as equals. The rigid concentric circles had been replaced by a more organic arrangement, with conversation pods and collaborative spaces interspersed among the formal seating. Gary Williams, still serving as Earth's military liaison to the Concordance, delivered a brief address that captured the spirit of the new era. We remember those who cannot stand with us today, not to perpetuate division, but to ensure that their sacrifice guides us toward a future where power serves wisdom, not the other way around. As the ceremony concluded, John found himself approached by a young Earth diplomat who had joined the service after the charter signing. Ambassador Miller, she said, her expression earnest. I've been studying the negotiation records from Epsilon 9. How did you know the Council would ultimately accept such fundamental changes? What if they had called your bluff? John considered the question carefully. It wasn't a bluff, he replied. Earth was genuinely prepared to chart its own course if necessary. But more importantly, we understood something that the Council had forgotten. True stability doesn't come from control, but from investment. When every species has a genuine stake in the system, they'll work to preserve it without coercion. And the Europa incident, she pressed. Do you think it was deliberate? A test of Earth's resolve? John's expression darkened. I think it was a symptom of a system so accustomed to compliance that it had forgotten how to recognize determination. The Council didn't expect resistance because they hadn't encountered meaningful opposition in millennia. Later, as John prepared to return to Earth for the groundbreaking of the new Interstellar Academy, built on the principles of open exchange rather than controlled dissemination of knowledge, he took a final moment to view the neutron star that had been his first glimpse of the Council's domain. Its brilliant light still pulsed with hypnotic regularity, but now it illuminated a very different galactic order, one where humanity's refusal to compromise had created space for a more authentic form of cooperation. Not perfect, not without challenges, but alive with possibility in a way the old system had never been. As his shuttle departed, John reflected on the long journey from Earth's first hesitant steps into interstellar diplomacy to its current position as an architect of galactic governance. The path had been neither straight nor easy, marked by loss and confrontation alongside discovery and alliance. Yet, through it all, humanity had maintained the qualities that defined its unique contribution to the galactic community: adaptability, creativity, and an unwavering commitment to self-determination. These were not weaknesses to be controlled, as the Council had initially believed, but strengths to be integrated into the rich tapestry of interstellar civilization. The Galactic Council had pushed too far, expecting submission and receiving revolution instead. Now, as the stars stretched before him, John Miller could see not just the cost of that confrontation, but the promise it had ultimately fulfilled: a galaxy where diversity was not merely tolerated, but embraced as the source of its greatest achievements. Behind him, the neutron star continued its ancient dance, indifferent to the civilizations that orbited in its light. Before him lay Earth, still beautiful in its blue complexity, no longer isolated, but connected to a community of worlds where humanity could finally stand as neither superior nor subordinate, but simply itself, one voice among many in the ongoing conversation of the cosmos. As his shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere, John noticed something that brought a smile to his face. In cities across the planet, the monuments bearing the words, "Remember Europa," had been modified. Beneath that solemn injunction, a new phrase had been added: "Build tomorrow." It was, he thought, the perfect epilogue to humanity's most challenging chapter among the stars. Not an ending, but a continuation of the story that had begun when the first human eyes had looked up at the night sky and wondered what awaited beyond the darkness. The Galactic Council had pushed too far, but in doing so, they had inadvertently created the very thing they had most feared: a truly united galaxy, where power flowed not from authority, but from mutual respect. It was, John reflected, perhaps the greatest irony in the history of interstellar relations, that the attempt to control humanity had instead liberated the entire cosmos. And as Earth rose to meet him, brilliant against the void of space, John Miller knew with absolute certainty that whatever challenges awaited in the vast, unexplored regions beyond concordant space, humanity would face them not with fear or arrogance, but with the same unwavering spirit that had carried them through their greatest trial. The spirit that had led them to stand firm when compromise would have been easier. The spirit that had transformed a tragedy into a revolution. The spirit that would continue to guide them as they reached for distant stars, unbound and unafraid.